pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please join in a moment of silence. Thank you very much. Please be seated. Due to an earlier closed session, item number 2 on the agenda is citizen concerns. If anyone is listening live, the number to call in is 712-224-6014 at any time during the agenda. That said, is there anyone present or on the line wanting to address an item not already addressed on the agenda? And hearing none, we'll move on to item 3. Supervisor DeWitt has a comment.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to have item 10 withheld from today's meeting. There's going to be some need to review it by both city and county attorneys. We'll bring it up at a later date, so I would like to move approval of the agenda minus item 10 for today.
I'll second that. My understanding it was a little premature, and the person submitting has been advised and is amicable to delaying this item. Very good. Any comment on the agenda? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Passes 4-0. Items 4 through 9 constitute a consent agenda of routine action items to be considered by one motion. Items pass unanimously unless a separate vote is requested by a board member. Item 4 is approval of the minutes of the March 31st meeting. Item 5 is approval of the claims. Item 6 from Board Administration is a approval of lifting of tax suspensions for petitioners who failed to recertify their income or income does not qualify for the continued tax suspension. Item 7 from the County Auditors to receive the County Auditor's quarterly report. Item 8 from Human Resources is the approval of the Memorandum of Personnel Transactions. And item 9 from the Board of Supervisors, Supervisor Keith Raddick, is to authorize the chairman to sign a letter of support for the BOOST grant. You want to offer any comment?
1 second on that. There are supposed to be technically, I think, 2 letters here. Department of Labor, Grants Management, Melissa Abdullah was to get the Pathway Home grant, so that one's there. But there was also a second one below it for adult reentry grant.
Karen, do you know what Mr. Raddick is talking about?
In the email. Okay. Basically, the one that's on the agenda is for the Pathway Home. There was another that said young adult reentry grant application. I should have caught this when I saw the backup material, but I didn't catch it then.
We can put it on next week.
I think they needed them this week. I mean, technically, we're still signing letters of support for the BOOST grant. It's just the text has one different line in the second letter. And it's the line that says young adult, or instead of saying Pathway Home grant application, it says young adult reentry grant application. That's the only difference.
I think the agenda item's broad enough that if they're both for the BOOST grant, that you could approve multiple letters.
So, thank you.
Pat, would you like that in 2 motions, or would you like just the consensus to?
Just the consent, yeah. I mean,
Is there a consensus to sign an additional second letter regarding the same BOOST grant? There is.
Thank you.
Any other discussion on the consent agenda?
The only other discussion on that was that bringing up the, we never did finalize a lease agreement with them. Was it going to be $180 a month for cleaning services, and their share of heat and utilities. Jeremy had talked about that. Well, that never, after his kind of deal coming up, that never got finalized.
What are we talking about?
For Boost, the space over in Trosper Hoyt. So they would like to see us get that all finished up before they go in through their next grant round and everything. So
But that's separate from,
Is that
that is separate from this, but,
All right.
sorry, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think one's been drafted. I think at one point I was a part of some conversations related to that. And I can check on that and see where things are at. I think that we were trying to track down a copy of a prior agreement. But I'll try to get those, get the ball rolling on that again.
Sounds good. That's your goal for the week. Work from home.
All right, so for the item number 9, there were 2 things.
It's the same,
But Karen knows, I mean, we'll get that information, right?
yeah,
Okay.
okay.
And the other one's a separate one we're not doing anything with? Correct. All right,
It just came up in the phone conversation when
okay.
we talked on Friday morning.
I'll move the consent agenda.
Second.
Second by Radig. Further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Passes 4-0. We are ahead of our 4:40 p.m. set time by 3 minutes, but if there are other items we can discuss within 11. From Community and Economic Development Director David Gleiser, before we open this public hearing at 4:40.
I would recommend that we move into item number C, 11C, to receive the zoning commission's recommendation from their March 2020 meeting to approve the final plat for the Autumn Wind Edition. This is really just a follow-up to the action that the board took last week with amending our zoning district designation map, and the PRIs are changing their, are in the process of changing their zoning district designation from agricultural preservation to agricultural estates, and they're doing this in tandem with the subdivision process because they're going to split their parcel and build a new house on the new lot, and their son will move into their existing home. As of today, we have not received any petitions for or against this, and it's a pretty straightforward one-lot subdivision.
Any questions? I'll move to receive the recommendation.
Second.
Second by Radig. Hearing no discussion. All in favor say aye.
aye.
Opposed say nay. Passes 4-0. Item D then.
Would just ask for the chairman's signature on the plat.
I'll move approval in item D.
Second.
Second by DeWitt. Hearing no discussion.
I just apologize, I misspoke and said it was a simple one-lot subdivision. It's a two-lot subdivision.
Okay. Thank you. Hearing no other discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Passes 4-0. We're now at our 4:40 p.m. set time. Item 11A. Public hearing is open. To proceed, a motion to approve the zoning district map amendment. Is there anyone to speak? Hearing none, I'll move the public hearing be closed.
Second.
Second by DeWitt. Hearing no discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Passes 4-0. Is there another motion in item A to approve?
Correct. I think you just did that.
Well, you closed the public hearing, is what they
Let's
just,
close the public
close,
hearing.
okay.
And now I'll move to approve the zoning district map amendment.
Second.
Second by DeWitt. Hearing no discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Passes 4-0. Item 11B is to conduct the second reading of the ordinance and motion to approve the second reading, waive the third reading, and adopt as proposed.
This is a step that we communicated and sought guidance from the county attorney's office, and we believe that it would not affect or hinder any public comment or shake this project up anything out of the ordinary. So it's staff recommendation to go ahead and waive the third hearing and just move to adopt.
Any issues with that from the board? Andy, how many we have on our live stream at this moment?
We have 6 watching right now.
Do any of the 6 watching live wish to weigh in on this item?
You get your answer in about 10 minutes.
It is about a 30-second delay.
Oh, man.
Just yell up the stairs and ask the security guys.
Yeah.
But I would add that since last Tuesday, we have not received any public comment for or against this request, and it seems to be pretty non-controversial.
Mr. Gleiser, thank you for stalling for those 30 seconds so we could be sure that we're not missing anybody. I'll move as proposed.
Second.
Second by DeWitt. Hearing no discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Passes 4-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 12 from Secondary Roads, County Engineer Mark Nera includes A, for action, approval of the FY21 Woodbury County Secondary Road Department budget.
Good afternoon. First up is the budget. It reflects the budget passed by the Board of Supervisors last week on the county budget. The numbers look a little different because I have to displace and distribute all of the payroll within the roughly 11 budget items that the DOT gives us to work with. But again, this is our recommended budget for fiscal year 21, reflecting the figures that the county used for our total budget. So I recommend approval.
I'll move that.
Second the motion by Radig. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Passes 4-0. Item B is approval of the FY21 Woodbury County Secondary Roads Department 5-year construction program.
This year, our 5-year construction program is advancing a little different effort on bridges than we've had in the past. We have had some of the bridges on our paved road system crest that magic 50 to 55 years of age. And in recent inspections, we've been starting to see their condition decline and seeing that replacement of a number of them is going to be necessary. So that's probably the biggest change you'll observe in the fiscal year 21 to 25 budget in comparison with the prior budgets. Over the course of this, 4 bridges on County Road D12 that are structurally deficient or functionally obsolete will be replaced. 1 bridge on County Road K64 will be done shortly after the beginning of the new fiscal year. A second one is in year 2025, just north of Climbing Hill. If you've driven north out of Climbing Hill on K64, you're probably familiar with that first bridge where you're going down the grade on the bridge. That one is ranked as one of our poorest paved road bridges that is being brought into the program for the first time. We're maintaining our efforts with the rest of the structures that have been working their way through the 5-year program. Due to increased costs, a couple have been bumped down. You know, each year I end up adjusting a little bit. It seems like 1 to 2 bridges that are programmed end up getting bumped into a future fiscal year, just because of the inevitable. It seems like 5 to 7% increase in construction costs that we observe each year. I can answer questions about any specific projects if the board has any. Otherwise, I recommend the 5-year program for approval.
I'll move it.
I'll second the motion by Radig. Any discussion, or your office getting a lot of feedback on this? Any of these projects?
We frequently talk to our landowners when they have concerns about some of the projects. M66 is one that's had a lot of comment from landowners in the area. We're working with the city of Hornick on a fiscal year 21 project to repave a portion of County Road K64. That one's had a lot of attention from folks. Bridge 0102 is of particular concern to one of our property owners there in the area. That's off of County Road, I want to say it's L21, and it's just a little gravel road loop, but it connects his pastures to his main farm place, and the bridge is posted, I think, 6 tons. It's causing a lot of difficulty for him. Bridge J178 is another one on Jewel Avenue that has received a lot of attention from the area property owners. That's also in this first accomplishment year, as it's called. So, you know, as we get comments from folks, we try to prioritize and incorporate those bridges that are perceived by an individual as being important, along with moving our program forward and trying to minimize those holes where people can't get through due to posted structures. Our pavements don't cause us near as much trouble as what the structures do when we have whole areas that are ill-served by bridges. And I'm glad to say over the past 8-9 years, we have really closed up some of those areas and shortened people's runarounds that are necessary. The bridges in the construction report, those first 2 that are the swap projects that are going to be replaced are 2 of the last bridges that are really causing a problem for some of the local farmers there on Hancock Avenue and 200th Street. So those are 2 major roadblocks, so to speak, for people getting around and being able to navigate out there. So we've really, I think, made some progress with the board's help and with the budgeting we've been able to do over the last few years. A couple of good things. We were able to add 2 bridges for the next couple of fiscal years because of some additional federal aid that has come our way. It's been distributed through the DOT to us and allowed the addition of a couple of structures that are among those key bridges on paved roads that we're going to be able to get rid of now just a little bit quicker. Continuing to work and improve the structures out there.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Passes 4-0. Item C is approval of a federal aid swap fund project agreement for project parent 140.
This is one of those bridges we were mentioning on 200th Street. This is just to the west of Mobile Blacktop. It's a mile north of D38. It's an important bridge for us to keep in our system because when we do end up having to replace that D38 bridge, that one's probably 10, 12 years off. Not one I'll worry about. My successor probably will. This will give the shortest possible detour for that paved road runaround when it's necessary for property owners. And a lot of property owners use it now because it is about a 4-mile hump around gravel to get around in this area. We've eliminated a lot of the bridges that are over that west fork of the Little Sioux. This is one that I felt was vital to keep in place and maintain as an active structure out there. I recommend approval of the agreement.
I'll move it. Second by DeWitt. Hearing no discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Passes 4-0.
This is paid for 100% by state bridge aid funds.
Great.
It also requires the signature of the auditor as well.
Thank you. Item 13 from the Board of Supervisors, Mr. Potabom, for information, is a discussion of post-bid general contractor quality assurance questionnaire.
And Mr. Chairman, after putting this together, both yourself and Auditor Gill brought some more things to me that I went through our policy and found a 7-question questionnaire that says requested, and we took that to mean it was not necessary. And then we went back and saw what was passed on December 16th of 2016, which is a more lengthy questionnaire.
Okay.
And says is required, and I believe Kenny has a little more information to give us. My problem with it was our belief that it was just requested that the bidders fill it out, and we wanted to make it mandatory. But it sounds like in the policy it is now mandatory.
It is, the board made it mandatory December 20th of 2016. I brought an example for you. This is the project spec book for the courthouse automation controls. So this is what goes out to a prospective bidder when they want to bid on one of our jobs. Right inside the spec book is our quality assurance questionnaire, which they must fill out. That has to be turned in either prior to or with their bid submission, as well as the bid bond and other things that we require when they're turning those bids in. Also, just for the board's info, there's some other things that we require that you're probably not didn't have previous knowledge of, but on some of our projects, we also require a background check, so that's an additional form that we do require in those spec books as well. If they're doing work at if it's a project at the LEC or at the courthouse, or areas where we have really tight security, we do require background checks by all the individuals working on those projects, which can get a little lengthy, and I appreciate the Sheriff's Department's help for that when we do go through those, because they run those background checks for us. But yes, it is policy, and are there any other questions somebody might have?
I have one. While you have that there, how lengthy is the questionnaire you have? Because I have two different ones here.
It is,
Because this one I
He's
found
asking, Kenny, is there 12 questions on that questionnaire?
8 or 12.
Right. Because the second page was missing from the homework.
it looks like it is 11 questions.
So we have a third version
Well, there was one that was removed, I think, during that discussion in 2000.
from this.
Yeah.
Okay. So what I would like to do, Mr. Chair, before we even think about bringing this back, is have a chance to talk to Kenny and see if it's already in policy. There's no reason to bring this one forward if it's already required.
Although we should probably clarify whatever list of questions.
Yeah, that's right.
Done, so.
I guess if the board would like, I could bring back, we could look at it and bring it back and reapprove it again, if you'd like to call it that. And also, Mr. Potabom probably brought up a good question before we started the meeting. And he said he was reading the questionnaire, and in the first paragraph it says, Woodbury County is requesting that the following questionnaire be completed by all prospective general contractors and must be included prior to at the time of bid submission. We could take that word requesting out of that. It's not necessary.
But truthfully, that's the word that goofed me up, because I thought we were requesting it, and I was just going to change the word to say required.
So we could update this form and have you approve the new form, I guess, if you'd like to call it that, and be a little clearer going forward.
It's fine with me. If you find anything else that needs to be updated, bring it back. I guess, what can we do to make sure we don't find obsolete policies? Where did you get the shorter one?
I'd have to go back and find where, because I was going through all the policies looking for it, and that's where I came up with this. But
Did you use the policy book in the board office or HR?
I was on the computer
Okay.
on our website. But I'll work with Kenny in the next week and make sure that
Sure, get it
we have
updated
Okay.
correctly.
made it up right.
Okay, yeah, let's update the website then.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Did any contractor bring this up, or you?
Actually, it was Ernie Colt that got a hold of me, because they were looking, they're going to present it to the city also, to have a similar policy. Just what the fear is to make sure that the general contractors aren't allowing subcontractors to come in and just 1099 everybody, not have any taxes taken out, not have workers' comp taken out, and to make sure that they're doing a legitimate job on the construction jobs. And that's where this came from. The questionnaire, even though it doesn't specifically address workers' comp, it does address have they complied with all child labor laws and all.
Yeah, it is. The words are confusing. It says request and then it says must in the same sentence. So we'll clarify that. As long as there are no other changes other than that word and to make sure it's in the record so it's on the website. Does anyone have objection to it being on the consent agenda?
No.
Okay,
If we find any other wording, I'll make sure it comes on as an action item then
great. Thank
to
you.
discuss it. Thank you.
Other thoughts on this information item? All right, then we'll move on to our quasi-permanent item, which is 14. For action due to COVID-19, the board will be discussing various issues and may take appropriate steps for the protection and safety of both the community and county employees. It was just brought up to me that the chairman's memo that the board approved for a policy regarding the time off usage and making that easier for employees to use their accruals was set to expire on the 10th to match the governor's closure or recommendation of closure of the schools. That's obviously been extended to the end of the month. So I think that we should extend this, and I would suggest, as we did last week, extend it to the following Tuesday meeting, which would be May 5th. Anyone have a problem with that? And I'll move to extend approval of the chairman's memo regarding employee time off due to COVID-19 through May 5th.
Second.
Second by Potabom. So we'll send a one-liner email just to say this is extended through May 5th. I can do that. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Passes 4-0. Are there any other updates we should be aware about or questions we can answer?
I have some.
Yes.
From the, when we first started discussing this, I asked that some sort of screening questions be asked at the front door, and you didn't accept that. You just did by appointment only. One of the things happened recently here, and we have discussed this previously too, is that I think somebody should be at the front door. Doesn't have to be security or somebody else, but should be at least checking for temperatures as people come into the courthouse. We had a staff member that had to be sent home that did have a temperature, and it would be nice if those people were met at the door before they get into the courthouse. So somehow I'm requesting that that take place at the front door.
I agree.
One of the things we discussed is where we're going to get the equipment to do it.
Dennis got some from Greenville Pharmacy, but
Greenville will have the ones that you'll just point your head wherever.
You don't have to rub it, just the infrared.
Touch your head and you'll get your temperature.
we originally, when we discussed it, I had Michelle as a request from emergency management is the thermometer for every office, but seems it would make more sense to have them screened at the door before they come in. And if there's, I don't know if we can get equipment. We've talked about it, getting something that's accurate. We don't know how accurate the equipment is, but we should be able to get something we can rely on, and it should be at the front door.
Well, to take my question, when I asked Dennis, I said, is it something you just point at them, or do you have to actually touch them? And he says, no, you just point, but you touch their head.
Yeah.
Now, that's different, because they have one that you just point at them. You don't have to touch them. And if you have one that touches them, somebody may complain if they're the next in line and you touch it to them. So I'd like just to make sure that we know what we're doing, or at least look like we know what we're doing.
It takes a little longer with the one that pushes your head and that you place against your head. The others I've seen is that it's just kind of just a shot. Be nice to be able to get one of those. I don't know if we can get one.
What do they use in the jail?
And who does it?
I kind of got a blank look, so I was just
Todd Wick, Sheriff's Office. The nurses are doing it in the jail.
Oh, the nurses do it?
Touch, yes.
But is it the one you touch?
Touch.
Oh. 'Cause I'd really like to get the one that you don't have to touch anybody.
We've got trained medical personnel that are doing it to everybody. Our correctional staff, they're not doing it.
Are they looking for extra work?
I'm sure it's something that could be discussed.
Well, we discussed last week looking into it. Has anyone done any work to look into it? I was told by Director Green that there would be one sent to the board office. Has that happened? Does anyone have any update on figuring out this? Who's going to do it? And
We can call Kevin up tomorrow morning. Or have a cell number and call him tonight.
Yeah, because what employee's going to do this? Who's going to spare somebody from their office, or who are we going to hire on that side?
I kind of
David
think
just wants to do it.
But I personally would like this to find one that you don't have to touch them, because then you get into another problem. You're going to touch the next person with that same one.
Well, you have to sterilize it every time.
Yeah, that takes a little longer too. With the infrared one, it's a lot quicker. It's not quite as accurate. Everything I've read says the accuracies could be a half a degree off. But to me, that's worth the convenience and not having to sterilize it each time, especially when all the employees are coming in, because you're going to make all the employees do it too.
Right.
And, you know, and I know they don't come through one at a time with 6 feet in between.
Well, I'd like to see it be somebody other than the security crew. We've got plenty to do up there as it is.
That's what we're saying is, who are we going to get to do it?
You're gonna,
I am unemployed right now.
And then you're talking about having somebody there for 8.5 hours.
mm-hmm.
Or 2 people for 4.25 each every day.
Well, I'm there at 6:45. We have people come that are beating me in.
Have we open the door?
7.
So whoever's going to do it will have to make sure they're the first one here.
If you aren't going to assign somebody to do it, you're going to have to get that. Who provides the nursing services at the jail?
so that's a serious question then. Can they help?
We'd have to check with them tomorrow and get back to you.
Please.
Because that'd be the best way to do it if we're going to do it, is have a qualified professional that knows what they're doing.
Yes.
Instead of having Butler say, yeah, I'm going to point at you, then touch you.
Kenny?
You think Kevin Green would have anybody on staff or any tax to work already?
I've asked him. He said he'd look into it. I don't know what to tell people.
That's what he told me too. And that he said you wouldn't need a nurse, you would need a CNA, but I don't know what kind of services are provided.
Let's all just text him right now. Pull out your phones.
Well, I'm guessing the nursing service for the jail probably has CNAs also.
I can't answer that.
I mean, someone can ask.
I can check tomorrow to find out, you know, if it's a scheduling issue, if the ones that are working up there, or we can possibly bring in an additional nurse to do that all day long at the door. I'll just have to check with the jail and chief deputy leader.
Because we have to find out a couple things. Who's going to do it, and what kind of equipment are we going to get?
Right.
Get the guy from our 4 o'clock meeting to do it.
Oh, I'm sure there will be.
Well, yes.
You.
Do we need to seek volunteers among the community?
How about Sheriff's Reserve?
We don't have posse anymore. It's just reserves, but I don't know if there's any other that are qualified for the medical stuff on that, is there? They're not trained in any of that as business.
Maybe seek a medical intern, right?
And you,
Highly doubt everyone screening foreheads is a medical professional at private businesses.
could I suggest that chairperson entertain a motion that gives the authority for the chairperson to, after finding a service, to start this policy?
Would happily entertain that motion.
So moved.
Could you restate Mr. Potabom's motion, please, Mr. Gill?
No, Mr. Wick, did you have something?
If we're gonna do it at the courthouse, or we're gonna do it, the other two buildings too, or just the courthouse?
This is just for the courthouse. Unless we're going to find 2 or 3 and we can't find 1.
Right. Anyway, Mr. Potabom's motion is to locate the equipment and personnel to implement a policy of checking the temperature of everyone that comes into the courthouse.
And to authorize the chair to initiate.
He's got a call.
Director Green on the phone.
Perfect.
I'll put you on speaker.
Any text back and forth?
There you go.
All right, Kevin, I just got you on loud and clear, so you want to start over?
Oh, sure. This is Kevin Green. I was watching online, and I got the wrong number written down, so I finally found the right one to call in.
We've been expecting you, Director Green.
Okay, yeah. Let me shut off the, okay, I gotta shut off this gate here. Anyway, yes, you were talking about a qualified medical individual to do the temperature scanning. And I think what I'd look at is, I kind of went through my staff, and so we're kind of busy, I guess is what it was. We do still have another temperature thermometer is what it would be, but it is the forehead touch scan. And what we have done here for screening in our building is, we have trained different staff members that are screening all individuals that enter the building. And this includes, some of them are nurses, but there's some of them that are also in our family support worker. We didn't feel it needed just with training, they would be able to adequately operate the thermometer itself. And then what our protocol is then, we keep the individual doing the screening, actually is the one who's the only one that touches it, and then after every forehead scan that it does, it is cleansed with an alcohol swab. And that's been the process we've used. I guess tomorrow will be day 3. We started that on Monday. So it's up to you what level of individual you would want there, but
You still there?
so I've got another thermometer, but I'd understood that Dennis had already located one of the identical type that we use, if you would want to use that. But I think as far as training, whether it's a volunteer or what it would be, it doesn't take a nurse, I guess, just to do this scan. And then the way we do it is we don't record the actual temperature. We just record that they've been scanned, which means they met it. And then we just show them the temperature to the client or the person being scanned, as opposed to reading it out loud. And that's been the protocol we've used just out of security, safety, that type of stuff. And that's kind of how we've handled it.
Mr. DeWitt?
Have you had to turn anybody away due to temperature?
We have not yet at this point in time.
What would you do if they refuse to leave, or how is that going to work? If they
If
do,
they refuse to leave, what staff up front has been structured is that we have the emergency response button. If they refuse to leave and that sort of stuff, and they're posing a threat to the staff, then we just hit the emergency call button, which summons law enforcement.
can we,
The instruction we've given those staff that are basically attending the staff up front, and it's in the entryway right into the front doors.
well, we seem to have the issue that this is a public building. Does that have any standing, Mr. Widman, on if they're above the suggested temperature, can we still refuse them entry, or what's the protocol, what's the answer?
You can, just because something's a public area, I mean, obviously we're restricting it to appointment only, and the board could establish additional policy that, there's a threshold for the temperature. I mean, it's not necessarily any different than, you could refuse service to someone that's intoxicated or something like that. I don't think it's necessarily breaking new ground from a legal standpoint.
So, Director Green, you cut out for about 20 seconds, maybe. Were you talking about certain staff persons that may be available to assist the courthouse?
No, we have just gone through our staff, and we've recruited in about 2-hour shifts a series of volunteers that we assigned them that as their temporary work position, is what it was, and that's how we have operated that. And then with each one of those, then there's just adjusted time training, or we're also getting the repeat ones so they know what's going on. But I've kind of gone through the staff as what it was, and with some of the other things going on, I haven't found any that are available to be able to do that.
Do you foresee that changing in the next week?
Not probably within the next week. And the other part is if we get more cases and that starts going up, then we'll be even more strapped.
Just to follow up, we had, Mr. Butler was able to acquire 2 of these from Greenville Pharmacy. We have them in our office. Do you have one, or you said there was one different? Right. We requested those from. We requested 4, actually. Right. Yeah. And, but we haven't got any information on that. The other thing that I will check, we can talk about this motion again, but I can check with the temp agency that we use to see if we can locate somebody through that service that would be able to perform those services for us on a regular basis. It is going to cost some money, but I think we're going to have to do it.
But rather than going with medical personnel, Kevin, how hard would it be to train just somebody to do that?
We basically have written out the directions. I had sent them to Melissa for her to review just the instructions on how to use it. And then essentially what it amounts to is that one of us out there that is trained to do it is there first thing in the morning. We make sure the people there are understanding, and then as they move down from shift to shift, then they just assure that the person's been there before and they understand how to do it. It's not rocket scientist by any means. It's just a matter of holding down the button, put it to the forehead, swipe to the side, read the thermometer. And it's a digital readout that's kind of in the handle sort of thing of it. So it's not difficult to do.
We can use those that we have available until we try, and we can try to find a better piece of equipment.
Well, if we have to go to a paid staff member, then we can give Supervisor Raddick first right of refusal and see if he can undercut the bid.
50 cents an hour.
But Major Wick, please do check into ACH. Anything else, Mr. Green?
I know. I just wanted to, because you had some questions related to that, and so I thought I would just chime in and answer any that you had and let you know kind of how we're handling it up here.
All right. Thank you. Feel free to stay on the call. So my thought is if the motion could just regard the courthouse space, that if we cannot find personnel for the entrance, that at least it would allow department heads and elected officials to use their own equipment if they deem it necessary and identify a staff person in their office. It's not as clean as a single point of entry, obviously, but we're looking into that right now. So is that helpful or not helpful to do it that way?
It's better than what we have now.
Yeah, it's better than nothing.
All right. So
I'll be voting no. Just throwing that out there.
Would there be any alternative you vote for?
I just kind of feel that, vast majority of our employees are not necessarily in this building at this point of entry. And I just don't feel like we have money to hire somebody to do it, and I don't think asking everyone to volunteer or sticking somebody out there, unless you have somebody in mind that plans to volunteer, anybody, that,
Should we again defer for a week until we hear back from Major Wick and hear some cost estimate, or find any other recommendations from Director Green on how to identify people?
The way the motion was, it gave you authority to initiate it if we get those things. So that way we wouldn't be postponing it for a week if you were able to find someone and the equipment, or if we were.
Okay.
well, there's nothing stopping, the auditor's office from doing it at their office either,
Yeah. Wasn't the auditor's office where it happened?
But
Mr. DeWitt? Do you want to wait? Do you want to?
I would, I understand the motion. I'm wondering if, my thinking is security is tasked with more than enough as we speak. Perhaps if each department head had one in their office and wanted to deal with it that way, I would not be opposed to that, but if that's not acceptable, then I would say we wait.
By department heads, you mean departments that are under the Board of Supervisors?
I'm saying each individual office. And it's not very many people get through the security checkpoint anyway. So,
Is it assumed that every office every elected official could do this independently? Mr. Whitman?
For their own office, yes.
So unless we have immediate thoughts on who we would designate for our remaining spaces, it doesn't seem that useful. So just so I understand what you said, Mr. DeWitt, it was either that or support a single point of entry?
I would support a single point of entry. I just would like to see it someone other than security doing it, because we have our hands full as it is. If the chairman or the board can come to a consensus on hiring somebody, or whatever the case may be, to be there to do nothing but take temperatures, I'd support that as a single point. I think we are in a territory of, I hate to do something even if it's wrong, but at the same time, if we have to spend money to help spread or help prevent the spread of this, then it is what it is. Again, I'm just saying that I think security is, we did gain one more person back this afternoon, but we do have fewer people coming in, but each and every one of them requires a lot more attention to deal with. So security personnel has more than enough to do as it is. So if, like I said, if it costs, I'm not in favor, like Mr. Reddick, I'm not in favor of spending more money, but it is what it is. If we have to, we have to. We're in troubling times.
Apologize, Mr. Gill. Would you read the proposed motion?
I think Mr. Potabom knows what his
As
motion
it regards a single point of entry.
It was at the front door to have somebody with the proper equipment take temperatures and to give you the authority, if we were able to get that, to not have to wait till next week to initiate the policy.
Is there a second yet?
Not yet.
I will second.
Second by DeWitt. Mr. Green, are you still on the phone?
Yes, I am.
What is the temperature that you have as your threshold? 100.4?
Yes, 100.4 degrees, 100.5 and above, we ask them to leave and reschedule an appointment. If it's an employee, we ask them to call their supervisor, and the supervisor will give them direction on what they need to do.
And is it understood that the max temp is 100.4, or at least a consensus of the board?
Yes.
Sure.
Okay, any discussion on this? For the good of the public, the question may be, why are you doing this? I just reiterate what was mentioned earlier by Mr. Gill, that there was an employee identified that would have been turned away at the door if this policy was in effect, instead did enter the courthouse before screening themselves and then leaving. Does anyone disagree with that statement? All right. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay.
Nay.
Passes 3-1, Raddick opposed. Are there any other items regarding COVID-19 or that should be discussed or brought up?
I do just want to inform the board that I did arrange with the city to have 2 of the meters bagged out front so that folks that need to correct their ballots or to assist voters in person absentee voting, that's going to be taking place for the next couple of months, is that those meters are bagged and reserved for assisting voters.
There are also signs outside the courthouse on the sidewalk regarding the judicial branch's operations. There's a lot of things that go on in the courthouse. A lot of different things that go on. Anyone else have any thoughts? Otherwise, we'll move on. All right, we'll see this item next week. Item 15, reports on committee meetings. Item 16, citizen concerns. Item 17, any board concerns? Thank you. We are adjourned.